I remember the way she said it. I just need some time. Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like she was holding it in her mouth, tasting the words before releasing them. She wouldn't look at me, just kept staring out the kitchen window, like there was something out there worth seeing. But all I saw was the reflection of the woman I loved slowly slipping out of focus. It was a Tuesday, early spring. The kind of morning that carried the smell of cut grass and distant rain, the sky pale and bruised with clouds. I'd just made her coffee the way she liked it, strong, black, with a pinch of cinnamon. That cup stayed untouched on the counter. She left right after the conversation, said she'd be at her sister's. No tears, no fight, just stillness and silence. The kind of silence that hums, loud and alive, when something breaks inside of you. I didn't chase her. I didn't argue. Maybe because I believed her. Or maybe because a part of me, the part that never speaks but always feels, already knew the truth. I tried to keep my days full. Work, gym, long walks with the dog around the neighborhood. I'd catch glimpses of other couples, arms laced, laughter between them like a shared language, and I'd feel that twist in my stomach. Not envy, not sadness, just disconnection. Like I was watching life play out behind glass. She would text occasionally, just enough to keep things from feeling final. I'm thinking of you. I just need to clear my head. This is harder than I thought. And I would reply. I always replied. I gave her space. I respected her request, even when it carved holes in my sleep. But nights were the worst. That's when the doubts began to whisper. The shape of her absence grew heavier after sunset, her side of the bed too neat, her scent fading from the sheets, the quiet too obedient. I started replaying everything, the last few weeks before she left, the little arguments, the shift in her touch, the way her phone never left her hand anymore. There was no dramatic trigger, no screaming match, no slammed doors, just a slow erosion of something I thought was solid. And that made it worse. If it had ended in chaos, maybe I could have made sense of it. Instead, I was left with echoes. I told myself not to spiral, that people really do need space sometimes, that maybe she was struggling with something internal, something private, that maybe, just maybe, this was temporary. But on the fifth night without her, I walked past the hallway closet and noticed her red umbrella was gone. It hadn't rained. It wasn't in her car either. Strange, right? The little things. The ones your brain logs, but your heart refuses to translate. That same night, around 2 a.m., I found myself scrolling through the app for our home security system. I wasn't looking for anything. It had become a nervous tick, like checking your phone when you know no one's texted. I tapped through the footage like flipping through static on an old TV, half asleep, half hoping she'd come back to grab something, just to see her again, even in pixels. But then, I saw it. The front door opened. At first, I thought it was an old clip, but the timestamp said otherwise. 3 nights ago, 11:46 p.m., and it wasn't her alone. She entered with someone else, a man tall, built, baseball cap pulled low. His hand rested on the small of her back, like it belonged there. They were laughing, not whispering, not sneaking, comfortable, familiar. She wasn't looking around nervously. She knew exactly where the cameras were. She knew the angles. She led him straight upstairs, and that's when my body betrayed me. My chest didn't tighten. My jaw didn't clench. I didn't scream or throw the phone. I just went cold. Numb. Like someone turned the volume down on the world. The footage cut to static after 23 minutes. The upstairs hallway camera, the one I had installed last year after our break-in, had been disconnected. I watched it again, 3 times. Not because I doubted what I saw, But because my brain couldn't make peace with the way her body moved around him, so easy, so practiced, that was the moment everything shifted. The grief didn't vanish. It calcified, turned into something else. Not anger. Not yet. Just a quiet, terrifying clarity. She hadn't left to find herself. She had left to be with someone else, and she'd used my trust, my respect for her space, as a shield. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. I just stared at the screen. As the footage played on loop, and I made a silent decision. If she wanted to play games in the dark, I would bring everything into the light, even if I had to burn my own heart to do it. I met her in Baltimore. Not the kind of city you expect to find something permanent. But there she was, across the room at a friend's birthday, wearing a leather jacket over a summer dress, like her soul hadn't decided between rebellion and softness. She had this way of listening, head tilted, fingers lightly tracing the rim of her glass, that made you feel like what you were saying actually mattered. I was 34, still recovering from the smoldering wreckage of a previous engagement that had ended with more lawyers than closure. I wasn't looking. I'd sworn off anything that even smelled like love. But she made it feel different, not dramatic or overwhelming, just safe. That she worked in PR, fast talker, smart as hell. She had a laugh that punched the air, unfiltered from the gut, like it didn't care who was watching. And me? I was. Quieter, software consultant. The kind of guy who overthinks birthday gifts and leaves sticky notes on the fridge saying, "Don't forget to breathe." She used to call me her lighthouse, steady, grounded, someone who didn't flinch when the storms came. We moved in together a year later. Bought a small 2-story home just outside of Annapolis. White shutters, a creaky porch swing, neighbors who smiled too wide. Life felt like something we were building, plank by plank, with our own hands. She picked the paint colors, I handled the tools. Every weekend we'd go to flea markets, piecing together furniture and dreams at the same time. There were signs, sure. Looking back now, I see them all glowing like road flares. The late nights that turned into early mornings. The sudden need for privacy with her phone. The way she began correcting me in public. Small things at first, like where we met, what I ordered, who said what. As if rewriting our history made her feel in control. But love makes you stupid. No, not stupid. Blind. You choose not to see, because seeing means changing, and changing means losing. And I wasn't ready to lose her, not we had plans. We were trying for a child. That was the part that stings most. The week she said she needed space. She was still texting me articles about baby names, and Montessori parenting, and organic prenatal vitamins. I even had the Amazon cart filled with half the nursery. But maybe that was the plan. Keep the dream alive long enough for the lie to settle in. The strange part is, I don't think she ever hated me. Not in the screaming, bitter, scorched earth way some people do when they cheat. Her betrayal was quiet, surgical, like she'd spent months preparing the wound, and only now decided to cut. She knew me too well, knew I wouldn't rage or spiral, that I'd retreat inward, that I'd respect her space, Dot, and maybe that's why she got careless, because I trusted her. That night after I saw the footage, I sat alone in the living room, every light off except for the soft blue glow of the aquarium, a gift from her last Christmas, because she said watching fish calmed her anxiety. I stared at the slow drift of the angelfish through artificial coral and wondered if she'd bought it for me, or for the man I hadn't yet seen. She didn't come back the next day, or the next Dot. She kept texting, though. Always sweet, always vague. I'm doing a lot of thinking. I miss your voice. Have you been taking care of yourself? And I replied like everything was normal. I mirrored her tone. I told her I understood. I told her to take all the time she needed, Because I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I understood how deep it went. Not until I knew who he was. Not until I could look her in the eye. Not to ask why, but to show her I already knew. The lie she thought was hidden behind silence was now being unraveled in mine. And I was going to follow the thread. Every detail, every shadow, until the truth wrapped around her throat. The mind plays strange tricks when it's been betrayed. Memories, once harmless, take on new shades, like old photographs developing bloodstains. There was one in particular that kept resurfacing. A Tuesday, late February. She came home with a box of pastries from that overpriced place downtown, the one she always said was too far out of the way. Her coat was damp from rain, cheeks flushed, hair frizzed at the ends. She kissed me like she hadn't in months. Not deep, not passionate, but gentle. Thoughtful, she said. You've been so patient with me lately. At the time, I thought it was affection. Gratitude. Now I wonder if it was guilt. The kind you tried to smother with croissants and half-truths. That memory crawled back while I stood in the laundry room days later, folding her sweaters just to feel the weight of them. The scent of her, floral with something citrus, was still nestled in the fabric. My chest ached with it. But even in that ache, I began to notice things I hadn't before. Her scent had changed. Months ago. And she'd stopped using the detergent we both loved, swapped it for something else, said it made her skin itch. I think it was his scent she was bringing home. Every detail became a breadcrumb. There were others, like the way she began locking her laptop. She never did that before. We used to share everything. Netflix passwords, credit cards, notes for surprise dates. But somewhere along the way, she built walls. Soft ones, invisible, but they were there. I remember asking her one night, "Is everything okay with us?" She smiled, sighed. Why would you ask that? And it was in that exact moment that I felt it. The way she looked through me instead of at me. Not cold, not cruel, just distant. Like she was already gone, and only her echo remained. Still, I clung to what we had. We had dinners with friends, went to weddings together, posed for Instagram photos that now feel like stills from a movie. I was never really in. She leaned into me at dinner parties, laughed at my jokes, kissed my temple when no one was watching. The performance was flawless, but in the silence of night, when her body curled away from mine, I felt the truth pressing between us like a ghost. I remember waking up once to find her pacing the hallway at 3 a.m., phone in hand, whispering. She said she was on a call with her sister. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the human gut is ancient, and mine was screaming. I ignored it until I couldn't. After seeing the camera footage, I started pulling on threads. Not fast, not recklessly, quietly, carefully, like unraveling a tapestry without tearing it, just to see the full picture underneath. I remembered a name, James, mentioned once, months ago. A coworker, someone from her marketing team. She said he was annoying, always talking over women in meetings. I remember her ranting about him once in the car, her voice sharp and fierce. Funny, how passionate we can be about the people who secretly stir us. I searched our shared iCloud, the one she probably forgot we synced long ago, before trust became optional. Found photos, screenshots, a dinner reservation made under a fake name, but linked to her Apple Wallet. The pieces began fitting together. A weekend work retreat she never posted about. A spa charge on our joint card during a week she claimed she was crashing at her sister's. And then there was a receipt from a small boutique hotel downtown, a place we never stayed, because she said it was tacky. I called the desk, told them I left something there during a recent stay. The woman hesitated, then confirmed. Yes, a Miss Bennet had checked in for 2 nights. Yes, she wasn't alone. And no, the gentleman hadn't given his name. That was the first time I felt rage, not explosive. Not destructive, cold. Silent, strategic. Not because she cheated, but because she thought I'd never find out, because she counted on my decency to shield her duplicity. I stood in our kitchen that night, the same place where she once kissed. Flour off my nose and whispered about future children. The marble countertops felt colder. The air tasted metallic. And as I stared at her untouched coffee cup, still sitting there days later like a gravestone, I whispered to myself, I'm going to make you watch it all fall apart. Not with screaming, not with threats, but with silence sharper than any blade. And from that moment on, I became a student of her betrayal. Every smile she gave me after the lie. Every late night, I love you, she whispered while texting him. Every single thread of the mask she wore. And I would pull, slowly, deliberately, until the entire costume unraveled at her feet. Because the one thing she underestimated wasn't my anger, it was my ability to wait. It's strange what grief turns into when it's given time to breathe. It stops screaming, stops sobbing, and begins to sharpen. By the end of that week, I wasn't hurt anymore. Not in the way people expect. I didn't sit in the dark, hugging a pillow. I didn't drink myself stupid or punch walls. I sat in silence, measured, clear-eyed, almost surgical. Something inside me had gone still, like a lake right before the ice forms. Started learning her habits the way a hunter studies. The wind. I tracked her texts through our cloud backup. Not all of them, not the encrypted ones, but enough to see patterns. Enough to recognize that the word space was never about healing. It was cover, a fog she used to disappear into. The more I paid attention, the more I saw. Calls made when she thought I was at work, bank charges for gas stations near his. Neighborhood, timestamps that didn't match the stories she told. She wasn't just having an affair. She was building a new life, brick by brick, lie by lie, and using our life as her foundation. I didn't tell anyone, not friends, not my sister, not even the one friend who'd always warned me she had too much heat in her eyes. Because I knew, the second I said it aloud, it would become real, and I needed to stay invisible. That was my weapon. Silence. She thought I'd shattered. That I was giving her space in the sincere, loyal, wounded husband kind of way. That I was just waiting for her to come back and sprinkle her return with promises and apologies and tears. But I had no interest in waiting for apologies. That I wanted understanding. I wanted clarity. And I wanted her to feel the truth, not through confrontation, but through consequence. So I set the stage. I began to write her subtle notes. Things that seemed innocent. Short texts asking about her favorite wine, or if she wanted her electric blanket sent over to her sisters. I was watching her, studying her responses. How fast she replied, how carefully she avoided certain subjects. I noticed she was warmer when she thought I was clueless, like guilt made her generous. I leaned into that illusion, told her I missed her, that I respected her space, that I was working on myself, that I understood she needed time. And with each word, I gave her rope. Let her think she was winning, that I was sitting by the window like a sad old dog waiting for her return. While in truth, I was mapping the contours of her deception. I changed nothing in the house. Her slippers remained by the door. Her face cream stayed on the bathroom counter. Her favorite mug sat in the cabinet, untouched. Every trace of her still there, like a scene frozen in time, because I wanted her to feel safe. Wanted her to walk back in and believe nothing had changed, but I had. She called me one night, voice low, soft, the way she used to sound when she was half asleep and pulling my hand to her chest. I've been thinking about coming back soon. I stared at the ceiling as she spoke, the fan above me spinning shadows against the walls. I miss our home. I miss you. And in that moment, I understood what she wanted. She didn't want me. She wanted the version of herself that existed in my eyes, the one who hadn't been caught, the one who could slide back into her place, gaslight me into grace, and bury the truth beneath a slow kiss and soft apologies. But I wasn't going to stop her. I wanted her to come back. I wanted her to walk through that door and feel the weight of what she'd built and what I had silently dismantled. Because I knew something she didn't. I knew who he was now. James Matthews, divorced, 2 kids, mid-level creative director at her firm. I'd seen his profile photo, smug smile, designer beard. The kind of guy who wore turtlenecks in spring and called himself empathetic in his dating bios. His car had shown up in our driveway again. The week before, when she thought I was out of town for a tech conference. I wasn't. I watched from across the street in a borrowed car. She kissed him before the door, even closed. He didn't know about the cameras I'd hidden behind the window. Molding, a newer set, smaller, wireless. Installed after I saw the hallway feed mysteriously go dark that first night. I had hours of footage now. Clean, high definition. I wasn't saving it for revenge porn or drama. I was saving it for timing. And timing, I've learned, is everything. When someone thinks they've buried the truth, because the most devastating truth is the one you force them to say out loud in their own voice. With nowhere left to hide. She was coming home in 2 days, and I was going to greet her like nothing happened, pour her wine, ask about her journey, hold her hand over dinner. Then I was going to show her exactly what the cameras saw. The day she came home was bright, spring sweet. One of those cruelly perfect afternoons. Blue skies, breeze through the budding trees, birds singing like it was all new again. She pulled into the driveway like it was any other day, like she hadn't fractured something sacred in the air. Between us. She had on her favorite sundress, the yellow one with tiny white blooms, and sunglasses too big for her face. I watched from the kitchen window, letting the coffee steep a little longer, letting the silence draw tight around me. When she opened the door, she smiled, like nothing had happened, like she'd just stepped out for milk. "Hey," she said, softly, setting her bag down and pausing, like she was trying to read the room. I didn't move, didn't say a word, just let her fill the space. She came toward me slowly, arms open but hesitant, not quite confident, not quite guilty. Her voice was cautious affection. "I missed you." I kissed her cheek, light, hollow. She didn't notice. We sat together at the table. I poured her a glass of wine, opened the windows, let the breeze move through the house like truth. We made small talk. She told me about her sister, about therapy, about how she'd done a lot of self-reflection. Every word chosen with surgical precision, the language of someone rehearsing grace. I nodded, smiled, made sure my voice stayed warm. She asked, about work, about the dog. She reached for my hand across the table and said, "I think we can rebuild, if you want to." I said, "Of course," because I did want to rebuild, just not with her. Not with this version of her. The one sitting across from me wasn't the woman I fell in love with. That woman might have made mistakes, might have hurt me, but this one was a tactician, a strategist, someone who had already planned the next move before speaking her first word. She didn't know what. I knew. Not yet. Not about the hotel charges I traced back to her corporate card, the same one that billed conference expenses for off-site innovation meetings. Not about the property searches in her browser history, new apartments in Georgetown, a city closer to his office, not hers. Not about the quiet request she made to her bank to transfer funds out of our joint savings into a new, hidden account. That's when I realized. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was a transition. She had been orchestrating her exit, planning to walk away, not just with her dignity intact, but with a portion of my life folded neatly into her own. I found the lawyer's letter draft buried deep in our shared drive, dated 2 months before she ever asked for space. A quiet, pre-filled custody-free divorce proposal. Clean, cold, detached. Like she was writing a memo doc, there was a number scrawled in the margins. $94,000. That's what she intended to walk away with. Our savings. Her silence wasn't guilt. It was strategy. And I was the placeholder, the fallback man, the kind one, the one you could betray and still expect a civilized ending from. She didn't know I'd already frozen the accounts. She didn't know the email alerts were rerouted. She didn't know I'd hired someone, a friend of mine, ex-cybercrime unit, who offered to help me, just to see how far the rot went. It went deep. She'd been setting up this escape for half a year, maybe more, whispering sweet apologies into my ear while meeting him at lunch, feeding me dreams of our future while researching how to bleed me dry and land on her feet. And still, she looked at me across that table like I was the one lucky to be forgiven. I want to start over. I leaned forward. I do too, I said, and that's when I clicked play on the video, not on the television, not on a laptop, on my phone, held low between us. The screen turned toward her. I watched the moment her face broke. At first, confusion, and recognition, and terror. She went pale. The footage was clear. Her entering the house at night, guiding him upstairs, his hand on her waist. Her voice, caught in the mic I'd hidden in the hallway mirror, whispering, "Don't worry, he'll never know." She opened her mouth. No words came out, just breath, shallow, gutted, and I smiled, not because I enjoyed it, but because it was the first time I'd seen the truth on her face, and it was beautiful. She sat frozen, her fingers wrapped around the stem of the wine glass, like it might anchor her, like the right words could still unspool this moment, rewind it, erase it. But there was no rewind. Only now. The video ended. The silence stretched between us, brittle as glass. She finally found her voice. Why? Why would you record me? Her tone wasn't angry. Not yet. It was confusion coded in disbelief. The voice of someone realizing the mirror she's looked into was never real. I looked at her. Really looked. The woman who used to laugh into my chest like the world was safe there. The woman who once cried in the shower when my dad had a stroke. The woman who once told me I made her believe love could be gentle. And yet, here she was, calculating, scrambling, trying to reorient herself in a story where she no longer controlled the narrative. You disconnected the hallway cam, I said calmly. But you didn't think about the mirror. It's funny. We picked that mirror out together. Remember? She blinked. Swallowed. This isn't what you think. A pause. A breath. James wasn't supposed to mean anything. And there it was. The old trick. Minimize. Deflect. Soften the blade. I didn't interrupt her. I let her talk. Let her drown in her own carefully chosen words. Let her spiral. It was emotional at first. Then it got complicated. I was confused. I felt unseen. Unseen? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You said you needed space. Bet you were healing. Meanwhile, you were planning to leave with my money, with my silence, with your hands clean. She flinched like I'd struck her. I wasn't going to take it. I wanted options. So you drafted a letter to a divorce attorney 2 months before telling me you needed time. Her eyes widened. Now she understood. I had everything. There was no place left to hide, no thread to pull, no safe lie to retreat into. just the echo of her choices bouncing back at her. And then something shifted. She dropped the act. No more tears. No more false softness. Just cold, exposed exhaustion. I didn't love him, she said, eyes locked onto mine. I just didn't love you enough to stay. I nodded slowly. That, at least, was honest. That I could respect. So why lie? I asked. Why not just leave? She stared at the floor, then whispered, because I knew you'd still try to protect me, even if I didn't deserve it. The air in the room thickened. Her chest rose, fell. The tears came, real now. But not because she lost me. Because she lost the version of herself she tried to sell me. She stood, slowly. I'm sorry. I believe she meant it. But sorry isn't a shovel. It doesn't bury what it breaks. I stayed seated. You don't need to explain anything else. She looked around the house, our house, like a ghost surveying its former body. Every corner was filled with memories she could no longer claim. Every light, every crack, every chair, haunted now by what she did in the dark. Where do we go from here? She asked softly. You go, I said, and I stay. She didn't fight it. She walked to the door, picked up her keys. Her hands trembled. Before stepping outside, she turned. You really would have forgiven me, wouldn't you? I thought for a moment. Then, yes, if you had told the truth before I found it, I might have tried. She nodded. And then she left. No slamming doors. No final words. Just the sound of a woman quietly unraveling, and the scent of citrus trailing behind her, disappearing into the breeze. After she left, I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there in the quiet, that particular kind of silence that arrives after something permanent breaks. The house felt hollow, like it had exhaled. The light outside had softened, casting long shadows across the floor. And still, I stayed at the table, staring at her half-empty wine glass. I thought it would feel victorious. Catching her, exposing the lie, watching it collapse. But it didn't. It felt like standing in a burned-down church, knowing the fire was righteous, but still grieving the stained glass. In the days that followed, I did what needed to be done. The accounts were separated, the joint assets divided. The lawyer I'd quietly hired weeks earlier sent the paperwork, along with a precise digital archive of the evidence. She didn't contest, didn't reply, just signed and disappeared into whatever life she'd started building, one that no longer had room for masks. I boxed up her things slowly, not out of sentiment, but out of respect. Some part of me still remembered the way she used to dance barefoot in the kitchen when Billie Holiday played through the speakers. The way she would talk to our dog like he was a tiny, grumpy roommate. The way her eyes would fill with tears at rom-coms, even when she claimed they were cheesy. That woman was gone. Or maybe she was never real. Maybe she was just a story I told myself about who she was. But I was done telling stories. A few weeks later, I replaced the mirror in the hallway. Not because it reminded me of her, but because I wanted something that didn't hide anything, something honest. I started walking more, sleeping better, talking to people again. Not about what happened, just about life, quietly, patiently, like someone relearning how to breathe after swimming too deep. And then one night, I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, holding a cup of tea, staring out at the moonlit street, and I realized I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't waiting for anyone. The betrayal didn't destroy me. It revealed me. It peeled back the part of me that confused loyalty with silence, love with endurance, and in its place, something stronger took root. I wasn't the man she left. I wasn't the man she lied to. I was the man who watched the truth come home and let it speak for itself. And that was enough. Asterisk. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Click the video on the screen and I'll see you there.